Why are all these tech companies laying off so many employees? This is a question that we're currently asking and seeing constantly over and over again. We just got through hearing about massive layoffs taking place over at Meta, as well as some at Amazon, and now we're continuing to see more layoffs taking place recently, just this past week, with more companies going on. But I mean, this has been an industry-wide thing. So, because at first when I was talking about Meta, a lot of people were saying that it was related to Mark Zuckerberg's pursuit of the metaverse and all these different things and what's causing this, but that can't just be the case here, because I mean, it's happening industry-wide. I mean, you've got Coinbase, you've got Uber, you've got Amazon, Facebook, you've got all of these tech companies, Twitter, all of these places that are experiencing massive layoffs. And so another thing that I've heard from other folks was that it has something related to the advancement of AI and generative AI that's causing this. But I wanted to take us back to this article that was written by Forbes. Why are tech companies laying off so many workers? This was written back in November of 2022. And I wanted to just go over this real quick to show some things that people were talking about, and to see if this is something that that still could possibly be what's happening here. So let's just jump right into it, and I'll show you what we were looking at. But every week seems to bring a new round of layoffs in the tech sector, and obviously these numbers now are much larger. People were talking about this back then, and back then it was like, just this week it's been reported that Amazon is planning to lay off a massive 10,000 employees. This comes off the back of Meta letting go 11,000 workers last week, and I think now that's somewhere up in the vicinity of 28,000 plus. I mean, it's been massive. I think I quoted it in another video, and it's way more than that. But and then it says, Elon Musk running a continuous revolving door over at Twitter, and I just saw in another article where they calculated Elon Musk saying that the amount of employees that are left at Twitter has been reduced so drastically that they say that he's let go of close to 80% of Twitter's staff has been cleaned out. Now, there's different reasons going on over there, but I think all of the reasons kind of bleed together or funnel together into one place. But it said it would probably be quicker to list the companies that haven't laid off workers this year, but the ones that have include many other big names like Uber, Airbnb, Zillow, Coinbase, Netflix, Spotify, Peloton, Shopify, Stripe, and Robinhood. So we see all those companies were experiencing massive layoffs even back then, and that number has only increased. You would think that you were over that hump by this point in 2023, but it was starting then, and even more has happened now. And it even spawned a website which tracks layoffs across the sector, which is I've seen that and read from it and seen all the stuff that they're seeing. All these programmers, they seem to have a lot of time on their hands. So, but why is this happening? Why are so many companies in the tech sector, even ones still generating big profits, laying off so many people? The reasons are obviously going to be specific to each individual company, but there are a couple of big themes that are impacting Silicon Valley and beyond. And this is where we get into some of the reasons that I wanted to go over and kind of talk about today. The pandemic hiring frenzy. In many ways, this major round of layoffs is fixing a previous mistake during the pandemic years. Our online lives became our only lives. There was no community to the office, no bars on Saturday nights, and no pickup basketball or dance recitals. We were all forced to stay home, and we spent a lot more time online. Online shopping became just a growing retail outlet, but the only retail outlet. Became not just a growing retail outlet, but the only retail outlet. Netflix, Amazon Prime, and other myriad streaming services took the places of not just the cinema, but also nights out at restaurants, workday lunch breaks, and date nights. So now the interesting thing about this article is that they don't really show any kind of data to support their reasonings behind this. I don't know if this is something that is just widely accepted, or if a lot of these tech companies have acknowledged this, because even as I read through this, I didn't really see any quotes from any insiders from these tech companies. I mean, this is all just stuff that I guess that they're assuming, or at least seen trending with these companies. But obviously what happened is what Forbes is claiming is that this led to a boom in all of these services and all of these tech related services, and because of the expected shift of this boom becoming permanent, tech companies hired accordingly. So they expected that this was going to be a continual thing, that this is how the rise of this was going to be. They expected that the rise of this was going to be permanent, even beyond COVID or anything like that. And so they hired accordingly to it. They expanded their teams, created new ones, and generally grew very fast. This was heightened by the fact that large companies require built-in redundancy. And this is something that I have heard about, what they talk about here. So they give an example. So if a team at Meta requires 25 staff members to keep the application they work on running and stable, that team is likely to need 30 or more actual employees, not because there is enough work for 30 engineers to do on a daily basis, but to provide protection to the company in the event of a number of key staff leaving. I have heard of that. It's a two-way street too. It doesn't just happen at big companies, but and I've been in the room of some of these people where they discuss hiring an X amount of staff, and just for this purpose, but also for the purpose of, as the user base grows in that specific area, they want to be able to keep up or keep pace with the growing user base, and so they'll need the extra staff members. They will be put to work, and there will be work immediately, because those extra staff members will begin the baseline work to expand and keep things growing and keep up with the pace of the growth of the usage of whatever the application is or whatever it is they're working on. So there is a solid reasoning behind why they do this, why they would hire this, the extra staff. It's a common here it is. It's a common situation in the tech industry, and it likely meant that many of these companies hired even more workers than they thought they would need for a sustained level of higher usage. And so they're basically saying, though, the way they did this was because they estimated that the growth would continue at the pandemic growth levels. And like I said, there's no data here to support. I don't know. Since the world has returned back to pretty much normal, it's clear that the vision of the future from CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg and Brian Armstrong of Coinbase wasn't quite on the money. And so this is the post-pandemic reality here. Yes, working from home has become a much more accepted practice. Many office workers now enjoy the benefits of working from home as part of their permanent employment arrangements, but hybrid work has also become much more popular. Many workers and employers want some time at the office to collaborate, share ideas, and build a company culture. And that right there, I believe, is the future of what this leads. I think that the pandemic lit the match for this, and I think that as we continue and employers really have been able to see that it's possible, and then there's been a lot of data to support that having a hybrid work situation, setting up special situations for your staff, has led to a higher output of productivity. In some cases, and it doesn't work for every case. I think that we're going to see more and more of this. But while technology like Zoom and Google Meet are still seeing widespread use, we're past the old days of having every single meeting automatically held online. And I'll tell you here, I know of just a lot of companies after doing the Zoom thing, they got so sick of it that they just started doing phone meetings. I mean, it just was easier. You're dealing with, especially if you have a large amount of staff, and you're dealing with people that a lot of them aren't very tech savvy. A lot of these guys just started saying, hey, just call in and we'll put you on speaker. And they skipped Zoom and all this other stuff because it just got annoying. And they came to the realization that, like, Zoom and all these other services were not scratching the itch of needing community and togetherness. And so they said, well, if that's the case, we don't even care to use it then. We'll just use the phone, and then we'll try to encourage these people to come in person when they can. So outside of work, the situation is even more stark. In many ways, life away from the office is almost exactly how it was before the pandemic. Bars and restaurants are full again. Weekend sports have resumed, and vacations are back. In many cases, people are even more interested in these things after 2 long years of abstinence. And so the end result, they're saying, is that they hire too many people, and these aren't casual admin staff earning $10 an hour. These are highly experienced software engineers and developers earning low to mid 6-figure incomes, not to mention the generous benefits, facilities, and even stock options that are included as part of the package. Some level of overstaffing for redundancy is necessary, but it's clear that in many companies it's gone too far, and there is a bloating that has taken place. I think now, seeing this, I think that a lot of people can look even at ChatGPT and services like that. We've seen a lot of companies embrace these services. A lot of people have jumped on board with the narrative that the existence of these types of AIs are causing the massive layoffs, and I don't think that actually is the case. I think what we're seeing here is that we've read a lot of articles about these big companies, these same big companies that are doing layoffs, have somewhat embraced, or if not fully embraced, these new software, or these new AI device, or new AI applications, or whatever you want to call them. And it's not causing them to let staff go, but actually what they're doing is they're equipping their staff to use it, and it's increasing their output, increasing their productivity. And so the staff is fully embracing it. Some of these smaller companies, these smaller startups, are forcing it so hard on their staff that they're tying it into their performance evaluations and all that stuff. We had an article about that we went over recently. And so we're seeing them embrace it. And so I wouldn't say that it's causing these layoffs, but I would say it's magnifying it. I think you've kind of have this like perfect storm taking place in this industry right now, that's causing these things to happen. And that perfect storm is the bloatedness of all these companies, how many staff they hired on, and how there has been a lot of comments coming out. Obviously it's anecdotal, but there's been a lot of comments coming out that there's a lot of staff that don't really have much work to do. And so you can't really blame these organizations. I do think it's weird that they expected this growth to take place. We talked about this recently when I was reading an article from Walmart in the retail sector, how they planned on this growth, and how when you see massive growth and you see things that take place in companies that they have this windfall of just their products and all this stuff just starts flying off the shelves, and there's a tendency, which I think is a very dangerous delusion that any company can fall into, or any leader can fall into, which is to believe that, oh, this windfall is happening because I have an amazing team, I have amazing products, I have XYZ, and it's going to continue that way because of this. And I'm not saying be confident in your team or product or company. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that there needs to be a level of what's the word? Self-control, self-discipline. You need to be disciplined enough to take that data, take that thing that you're seeing, and really evaluate, okay, where is this coming from? Is this coming because we've done XYZ amount of work and we've built this kind of team and now all this stuff is happening? Or is there other outside forces happening? I mean, there have been situations even in sales and sales companies where people have massive windfalls of sales going through for whatever product they're selling. And then their sales managers will set this stupid goal. I mean, just, they'll look at what they're doing. They'll say, okay, so if you're doing this month, this means that next month you're going to do da-da-da-da. And then the sales managers will get mad at them for not accomplishing it. And I understand in pushing your staff and desiring to make them be better. And I think there's ways to do that, but there's ways to do it where it's healthy. If you set a staff member up for failure, you're just going to ruin what you have. You're going to ruin a great staff member, and you're going to drain the life out of them. And so it's just not a wise way to lead people. It's not a wise way to get productivity out of people, but do it in a way that's healthy, where it's lifting the employee up and lifting the company up. And, you have to keep on that principle, a rising tide lifts all ships. Like, that's what you want in your organization. If you are in a place where you get angry when your staff is getting better, when your staff is growing, when they're living healthy lives, because you're living this lifestyle where it's killing you, but the staff that you're working with is healthy, vibrant, and happy at work, and you get angry over that and you think they're not working hard, the problem is you. The problem is not them. And so in the same situation here, I went off on a total rabbit trail, but in the same situation here, these companies looking at what was happening with the pandemic and then making decisions, financial decisions, and employment decisions based on those numbers was a total detachment. It represents a total detachment of the reality of the situation and what was going on. It represents that they were looking at this and not looking at the facts and the data of like, hey, this is not normal. This is pandemic type stuff. There's a way to hire on staff and be able to compound and grow with the demand. But there also is a way to avoid massive bloatation. I don't even know if that's a word, but just massive like onboarding. And now you've got all these people and you're going to look like a bad guy and you got to lay them off. And they're obviously going to be upset. No one likes to be laid off and they have a right to be upset. I mean, it sucks, but now you've set yourself up for failure. You're really looking at it. You're screwed if you don't, and you're screwed if you do. I mean, you really have set yourself up to look terrible in the public's eyes. And so it's a crappy situation all the way around. It's a crappy situation for these companies, and it's a crappy situation for these people. And it really should have been handled much better. But there's nothing you can do. Hindsight is 2020. Hopefully they learn from this and they keep going. And it seems to be not just. It seems to not only be taking place in tech. It's taking place in a lot of these companies, because tech wasn't the only companies that were operating during that time. Like organizations like Walmart and Target and all these places, they did all these things as well in different ways. And we read an article from Walmart how they expanded certain clothing items and all this stuff, and now they're shifting their business model because they're seeing that less and less people are purchasing clothing, especially with the way the economy is going right now. Their clothing sales, they said, have dropped dramatically. Their outdoor products, and they have all these different products that one of their leadership listed as not really selling that much anymore, jewelry, all this kind of stuff. And so they're having to shift and move their business model around. And what that means is they're laying off a few staff as well. So it's happening everywhere. People are repositioning, and tech isn't the only one feeling it. But the economic situation and a potential recession. Now, this situation wouldn't necessarily be a major concern if the growth prospects were healthy in tech. Hiring too many people isn't a problem if you simply hire them a little too early. They talk about that. That's something that's common. The issue is that the short-term future isn't looking too rosy. We've been hearing for months now that the U.S. is apparently heading into a recession. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong was one of the earliest to call it out, with Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and many others following suit in recent months. And we're still in that. We're still acknowledging that that is happening, and we're still acknowledging that it's coming even more. And so, these are things that these guys are looking to and having to deal with. A recession would mean lower consumer spending, and most importantly for many tech firms, lower advertising spending. At the recent Q3 earnings call, Meta mentioned this specifically, stating that they expected Q4 and early 2023 advertising revenue to be softer than it has been. I would say that this is definitely played out. If you spend any time on YouTube and you listen to multiple creators on YouTube, they will tell you that the revenue they're receiving from AdSense and all these different things is much lower right now. And, a lot of them, I'm not going to say a lot of them. There are some that are blaming YouTube, and you really have to kind of see what's going on as a broader scale of what we're seeing here in the marketplace. With these headwinds on the horizon, tech companies need to rein in their spending to ensure they get through the volatile period safely. Mark Zuckerberg just recently, so this is 2023, they didn't know this back when they wrote this article, obviously, but Mark Zuckerberg did just acknowledge that there has been a drastic drop in ad spending. So what they were predicting has definitely taken place, and that's what you're seeing. So it's not so much the ChatGPT stuff. It's not so much the implementation of AI. AI, I think, is going to hit the market in a different way, because what I think is going to happen is you're going to really see the effects of AI on these companies post layoffs. Once the layoffs are completed, and if the market does bounce back or is starting to bounce back in a way, you may not see as much hiring taking place at these organizations, and even multiple organizations outside of the tech industry. And I think you're probably going to see that, because by the time they've already had all these layoffs and all this stuff is done, you're going to have generative AI technology being utilized in these organizations, and they're going to say, well, do we really need 5 engineers in this department when we have 2? And they're being very effective with generative AI. And if one of them leaves, they can continue to use that generative AI to make up for that person leaving, and we can just hire that person as needed. That might be the case. I think a lot more plays into that. I obviously know that the Silicon Valley area is a very competitive market, and people are constantly getting poached, and that's why there's all these crazy benefits, because there's a lack of people that have a specific type of niche skill, and they're constantly having to try to keep those people, and they're like rock stars over there, and they try to keep them and hold on to them. And that's why all these crazy benefits come out, and we hear about the restaurants and all this crazy stuff that they do on campus, because they have to keep up with that extremely competitive market. So maybe we'll see a slight variation of this, but there's a lot to come with that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I think that's what we're seeing here. I find this stuff to be really interesting. I find this stuff to really be something that I love to dive into, especially when we have so much going on in this market and we have so many factors that are taking place now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Do you still think that AI is playing a big role in these layoffs? What do you think the future holds for these organizations? Do you think AI holds any kind of future in any other market? That's another question, because there's a bunch of other organizations that are experiencing this, along with the embracing of AI technology. And I want to see what you guys think, if you're going to see that in any other market, specifically in retail. I'm curious to see if retail will take advantage of that and what that'll look like. It might affect them more at the corporate level rather than the floor level, but I don't know. Maybe somebody knows of some crazy thing they're doing with AI in a Walmart. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. That really helps the channel, and we really appreciate it. And I will catch you guys in the next one.